Good evening. I'm Linda Nearing, president of Laguna Woods Democratic Club, and I'm happy to see so many of you here tonight. We also have some press in attendance, and this is the club's third candidates forum, and as before, it is being taped remotely by our own Channel 6 Village Television. As you see, some of our candidates are seated here, and some may be coming a little bit later. They're very, very busy people running from one event to the other, as you can imagine. We know that they have a lot of commitments, so after they speak, if they need to leave, they are free to leave. We hope some of them will stay and talk with you back in Dining Room 2 when this event is over. Each candidate has a number of minutes to talk and answer questions, which I will announce as I call them up. We will have a roaming volunteer with a microphone in the audience to come to those who raise their hands with questions. And our timer tonight is Jonathan Adler, whom you just heard from. He will keep the candidates on track with the time remaining with his little cards there. As each candidate comes to the podium, we have a little surprise for them, a campaign contribution from our very successful fundraising campaign, led by Club Outreach Chair Rebecca Gillard. Thanks to our wonderful members and our friends for their very generous contributions to this fundraising campaign. We liked it so much, we're going to start another one at the end of the year. Looking forward to 2020. Okay. So first I'm going to introduce you to our candidate for the 74th State Assembly District, Katey Porter. The incumbent is a Republican named, and I'm going to spoil this for you, Jonathan, M.H., Matt Harper. Okay. Katey will have 10 minutes to speak and 10 minutes to answer questions. Many of you already know her. She's been our guest many times, but please welcome Katey Porter.
Thank you, Linda and Sue, and thank you to all of you for being here this evening. So yesterday was 9/11, and I think like many of you, I spent the morning at a Day of Remembrance event. I was in Laguna Beach. And I have to say, as I looked out across the faces in the crowd, and I listened to the sound of the bagpipes playing, the thought that went through my head was that even at this moment in time, even at this divisive moment in our country's history, there is more that unites us than divides us, and there is more that brings us together than the forces that seek to tear us apart. We're at another critical moment in our country's history, right? And once again, all across the country and right here in Orange County, we are seeing people standing up for American values, standing up for their communities, and standing up for what we believe in. This election is an incredible opportunity. It is the most important election of our lifetimes, and it's only 8 short weeks away. And this election is, it's important at a national stage, absolutely. Orange County is ground zero in the fight to take back the House in 2018. And I'm so excited to hear from Katey about her incredible campaign. But it's more than that, because here in Orange County, this is our opportunity to elect people at every level of government, from Congress to City Council, from our school boards to our state assembly. It's our opportunity to elect people who will lead instead of hide, who will get results instead of make excuses, and who will deliver for the people in this room instead of a handful of special interests. So I'm excited about November 6th. Thank you. As Linda said, I am Katey Porter, and I'm running for the California State Assembly. I am a business owner, I'm a community activist, I'm a working mom, and in the assembly, I will fight to protect our coastlines, to fully fund our public schools, to create good jobs, and build a strong California economy where everyone can succeed. I am running, as Sue said, against a gentleman named Matt Harper. And Matt Harper is failing this district. He is phenomenally out of touch with this district and with our community, and he's fundamentally failing to deliver. He has not passed any legislation, and he doesn't bring any money back to the district. So it's time that we get our fair share of tax dollars from Sacramento, and it's time that we have an effective voice in Sacramento so that our priorities can be addressed. I don't want to belabor, Matt Harper, but I think it's really important that we know what we're up against. So let me just give you a couple of examples. So Matt Harper, he is failing the women of this community. Matt Harper has a 0% score from Planned Parenthood. He is on the record as opposing a woman's right to choose, even in the case of rape, incest, or if the mother's life is at risk. And it doesn't stop there. In 2016, the California State Legislature passed the Fair Pay Act. So there are 120 members of the California State Legislature. Only 2 of them voted against the Fair Pay Act. I'm going to give you a guess as to who one of those folks was. It was Matt Harper, our guy. So he voted in 2016 against equal pay for equal work, was one of the only 2 people to do so. Matt Harper is failing the children of this district and of this community. He regularly votes against public education, votes against our teachers, and he regularly votes against common sense gun legislation. While Matt Harper has a 0% rating from Planned Parenthood, he's got an A rating from the NRA. And bottom line is that Matt Harper is failing every single person in this room and every man, woman, and child in this district because he refuses to acknowledge the realities of climate change. Like too many of our representatives at the national and sadly even at the state level, he does not think climate change is real. He's got a history of voting against environmental protections, and just 2 weeks ago, it was the last week of the legislative session, and Matt Harper voted against. So there was a bill that was passed, thankfully. There was a bill that will halt the expansion of offshore oil drilling off the California coast. That bill passed, and that's great news for California. It's great news for everyone in Orange County. Matt Harper voted against that bill, and the very next day, he received a large contribution check from Chevron. So we have got to stop this pay-to-play approach to politics. We need to, as I said, elect people who are going to represent you instead of a handful of special interests. So I'm excited about this race. We are in an incredibly strong position. I think some of you were with us last night. We just opened our campaign office in Costa Mesa, and Gavin Newsom came out to open the office for us. We had an incredible night with more than 200 people there. So we are fired up for the last 8 weeks of this campaign, and we have a great path to win, but we need your help. Like all of the candidates you'll hear from tonight, we need all hands on deck to make this happen because we can win. We're going to win on the issues. Like I said, Matt Harper has taken votes against women, against the environment, against our children, against common sense gun safety. Those votes make him vulnerable. We're going to win because we're going to outwork him. We are out every day, knocking on doors, talking to voters, and getting our message out. And we're also going to outraise Matt Harper because it turns out he's both a lazy public servant and he's also a lazy candidate. So he's not been working. Like I said, he's not talking to voters. He's also not fundraising. So we are in a very unique position. I've been able to outraise Matt Harper by a margin of almost 3-1 in 2018. And that has come, that hasn't come from the Chevrons, that hasn't come from special interests, that has come from real people who live in this district, real people who live in this community, and real people who want to see a change. I am really proud not just to have your support, but to have the support of our local teachers, of our local firefighters, of our local environmental groups. And I'm also really proud to have the support of leaders from both the Democratic and the Republican Party. I have the support of several previous elected mayors, one in Newport Beach and one in Costa Mesa, who are lifelong Republicans who are publicly supporting my campaign. Because as I said at the beginning, there is more than unites us than divides us, and we need to get away from partisan politics and focus on issues and focus on results. And I look forward to doing that for you in the California State Assembly. Thank you. So there's just, 54 days left until November 6th. And in 54 days, we are going to change the face of Orange County politics in a meaningful and lasting way. In 54 days, we are going to send Katey Porter. She's here. She's talking to a reporter. We're going to send Katey Porter to Congress. And we are going to send Duke Nguyen to the sheriff's office in Orange County. And we are going to send me, Katey Porter, to represent you in the California State Assembly. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. And thank you for all your support. Is that for me or that's for them? I've got my hot mic.
Raise your hand if you have a question. It has to get turned on by Aaron up there, so I think it's on now. So raise your hand if you have a question, and I will be right there. No? Okay.
Didn't the governor vote against the offshore billing the other day, sign a bill?
Pardon?
Didn't Governor Brown sign a bill against offshore drilling yesterday?
Yes. That's what I was saying.
So why did give the guy from money, Chevron Oil, get the guy the money if they're cutting back on the oil?
So while the vast majority of the California State Legislature voted for this bill that will halt offshore oil drilling or the expansion of offshore oil drilling, our representative, who represents a coastal community, the most beautiful part of California, he opposed that bill. So he voted in favor of more offshore oil drilling. Pardon? Well, they're not, because thankfully we've got sounder minds representing us in the legislature and the governor's mansion. We just need someone who I think reflects the views and the interests of our community as well to add to that voice. Hi.
Hi. I want to ask you about bringing money back to the district.
Yes.
It seems that Matt Harper's political philosophy begins and ends with keeping taxes, corporate taxes, and high income earner taxes low, and nothing else really seems to matter. That's the end all and be all of government. So how do you bring money back to the district? What kind of things do we need to do?
So as you probably know, California is not just the largest economy in the United States. We are the fourth or fifth largest economy in the entire world. So what happens in California matters a lot. What happens in the state assembly matters a lot, and having a good representative also matters a lot. So some of the things that I've talked to some of our local city councils about. So some examples include state funding for undergrounding of utility poles, which other communities have received. In Costa Mesa, one of the things that they are really excited about is the opportunity to use some state grant funding to improve walkability and bikeability across their community. And I'm sure there are opportunities to work with the Laguna Woods community and also with the Laguna Woods City Council to identify similar opportunities. So, I think that we know we pay a lot in taxes, right? And right now, Orange County is a donor county, and to a degree that does not make sense. So the reason for that is Orange County's kind of become like an island in the sea of California politics. So we are increasingly isolated, and that has increasingly impaired our ability both to pass legislation and to get funding back from the state. And the reason for that is that we have a history of sending people to Sacramento that aren't just Republicans, but who are, extremists who are not willing to build coalitions, are not willing to partner, and therefore aren't able to get any results. So that's something that's super important for us to change.
Hi. Quick question. Your opinions on single-payer health care, regardless if that's United States or just California?
So as I'm sure you know, there are 40 industrialized nations in the world, and 39 of those have a single-payer or universal health care system. The United States is the only developed industrialized nation in the world that does not. That is shameful, right? We are the wealthiest, most prosperous country that the world has ever seen. And that is a moral issue. But it's also an economic issue, because while we're the only country that does not have a universal healthcare system, our healthcare costs are two times, when you look at the per capita cost, it's 2x what these other countries' healthcare costs are. So we've got the worst coverage, the worst outcomes, and the highest costs. So something is not adding up. We know that, I believe, and I think a lot of us believe, universal healthcare is the right answer. I also know that it's a journey for us to get there. Neither at the national level nor at the state level is it something where we can just, pass a bill and then tomorrow implement that. But it's a journey we have to begin, because far too many people are going bankrupt because of healthcare costs. I think it is the leading cause of bankruptcy in America. It's also one of the leading causes of homelessness. So it's a problem that we've got to tackle and we've got to address, and we know it's possible because it's happening everywhere around the world.
Are there any more
other
questions? Okay.
Jonathan.
So, what is the party registration breakdown in the district, and have you calibrated your positions carefully, calculated your positions to play to the middle of the electorate, or have you basically taken the position of being a leader and an educator who can move opinion?
Okay, so did everyone hear the question? So let me first touch on what the registration is. So did everyone hear the question? Okay. So the registration, like most parts of Orange County, we're up against a registration disadvantage. So the registration is about 37.5% Republican and 31% Democrat, and then 31.5% no party preference. So we've got a gap of about 6.5% when you look at the Republican to Democratic registration, but we also have 31.5% of people who are either no party preference or another party voters. So that is really where we are focused, because we do not have to win, we don't have to win all those folks. We have to win the ones that are persuadable. And our strategy for that really focuses on the issues that I talked about. So, I'm really focused on talking to no party preference women, and even some women who are moderate Republicans, because I firmly believe that the issue of a woman's right to choose and the issue of a woman's right to equal pay for equal work, those are not partisan issues, particularly in our community and in our district. And then the other group that I'm really focused on are environmental voters. And again, that is not a partisan issue in this community. We are so blessed to live one of the most beautiful places on earth, caring about the coastline, caring about protecting our oceans, caring about clean air and water. That's a message that Republicans and Democrats care about a lot. So I think what I would say to the second part of your question is, I'm really just focused on issues that I feel like I said, they're not partisan, even if they've sometimes been identified as, climate change, that's something that these, liberal Democrats, care about. I disagree with that. I think it's something that everybody in this district cares about. And then the other thing I'm very focused on when I'm talking to people who may have a different political philosophy than I do is results. So right now, we are bottom line just not getting our fair share from the tax dollars we're sending to Sacramento. We've got to change that, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've got a donkey on your shirt or an elephant on your shirt. Everybody cares about that. So that's how we're going to talk to voters, and that is how we're going to win this race. I'm not sure where did Sue, we've got one more. I think we need to stop. Oh, okay. All right. I'll talk to you. I will stick around after. So if folks want to talk through any more questions, please do. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for helping me and all these other candidates win on November 6th.
Thank you so much, Katey, and of course, best of luck. Now, she has just arrived. She who stood right next to this man on the stage in Anaheim Convention Center last Saturday. This is Katey Porter. She's running for the 45th Congressional District. Katey Porter is running against incumbent Republican Mimi Walters. Mimi Walters voted with Trump 99% of the time. Katey will have a total of 10 minutes to talk and an additional 10 minutes for question and answer. And she missed it when I said we have a little gift for each candidate. So please welcome to the stage Katey Porter.
How are you all? Let me get this microphone going. How are you all doing tonight? Great. Okay. I'm Katey Porter. I'm a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, and I am a consumer protection attorney, and I am the mother of 3 very lightly supervised children. And what I'd like to do tonight is tell you a story about my life and about kind of how I came to fight so hard to help families and to make sure that we have an economy that works for everybody. So I grew up not in California, where it's warm, but in Iowa, where it's cold. And I grew up in Iowa during the farm crisis in the 1980s. And the price of grain had been going up for years. Money was cheap. Farmers everywhere took out loans to buy more equipment and buy more land. And they were told they couldn't afford not to, that this was what it meant to be American, was to invest in their business. And then the prices started to fall, and they kept falling. And people started to get worried. My parents started to get worried, and even the kids started to get worried. And I rode a bus to school. I had a long school bus ride. And I will never forget being on the bus one Friday afternoon. And this was a town that had not only no stoplights, it had no stop signs. You just yielded to the pickup truck that was bigger than the one coming towards you. And the bus came to a stop. There was a traffic jam in this town on Friday afternoon. And the bus stopped, and we were school kids, and we started to get rowdy. Let's go, let's go. And some wise ass at the back, may or may not have been me, said, let's get going. And the bus driver said in a very serious voice, "Sit down, the bank is closed." And somebody shouted back, "Yeah, no kidding, it's 4 o'clock. Bankers' hours being what they were back then, the bank closed every day at 3. But what that bus driver understood that we kids didn't was that the bank had closed because the FDIC had come in and the bank had failed. And there were the black town cars surrounding the courthouse, surrounding the bank on the little town square. And we didn't know that weekend what was going to happen to our bank. We didn't know what was going to happen to us, what was going to happen to our town and to our neighbors and to our school. And that was a really long weekend. But on Monday, the federal government had helped that bank. They had opened it, they had come in, they had restructured the finances, and on Monday morning, the doors opened. But the federal government didn't help the families and the farmers. They kept struggling for years and years. And neighbors all around us lost their farm. My family hung on by their fingertips each year, farming less and less land as my mother and then my father went to work in town to make ends meet. And the worst part of all of this was the way the farmers and the families blamed themselves. And I don't think they were to blame. They had done what good Americans trying to make a living do. And I don't think the town bank was to blame either. Everyone was trying to ride the capitalist tide. Everyone was trying to make a buck and provide for their family. But here was the difference. Here's why the bank got saved and families didn't. The banks had people in Washington that they had paid to make sure they got taken care of when times got hard. And our government had a system in place to bail out banks when things went south. We didn't. Now, we thought we did. We were in Iowa. We vote like there's caucus, like there's, like the presidency depends on it. And we thought we'd elected people that when things got bad in Washington, they would remember us. They would have listened to us. But what we saw was that the government saved the banks and let us fend for ourselves. That was a really powerful lesson, and it stayed with me. And it probably explains a lot why 30 years later, I was working as a consumer protection attorney, and I was standing up to big banks when they were cheating families. Because I had seen when there's a conflict between the interests of those who can buy influence in Washington, like Wall Street, and those who can't, like all of us, who wins? And so there I was 30 years later, making a presentation in a big hotel ballroom. And I had done a study, and the study had shown that the banks broke the law. Over again, went right into federal court and broke the law. And nobody did anything about it. And I'd gotten into this study because a lawyer had come to me and told me the story about this woman named Pearl, who was an 80-year-old widow, worked her whole life, was taking care of her disabled granddaughter, and Pearl was at risk of losing her home because she'd been sold a construction loan to fix her roof. And those construction workers, they never came, but the bank sure did. The bank came over and over and over again at Pearl for the 27% interest that they had charged her for work they never did. And I remember explaining my findings, explaining that it wasn't just Pearl, that there were American after American after American homeowner losing their home, losing their investments because of what the banks had done. And I got done with my presentation, and I had charts, and I had graphs, and I had data, and I had facts. And when I got done, just dead silence. Kind of like you guys. And then a gentleman way at the back, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Pearl's mortgage loan, stood up, and he looked at me the same way my junior high principal did, and said, "Young lady, Wells Fargo does not make mistakes." And I thought about that moment so many times years later when I had stuck to what I had seen and kept fighting for families and kept telling the truth about what was going on and how these powerful banks thought they could break the law and we would do nothing about it. We people and our politicians wouldn't fight for us. And so I went to work for then Attorney General Kamala Harris, and I went toe-to-toe with those big banks to try to make sure that every family in California had the opportunity to save their house according to the rules of the law. And what we see right now in Washington out of Mimi Walters, I have thought so much about these moments in my life. about why am I so dedicated to defeating Mimi Walters in November. And it's because what I see is Donald Trump selling out our democracy to the highest bidder. And Mimi Walters standing by and helping him. It doesn't matter the issue. It doesn't matter how much it hurts us. Mimi rubber stamps everything Donald Trump wants, from higher taxes on Orange County families to setting the stage for a deficit that's expanding and cuts in Social Security and Medicare. She stood with Trump, not with Orange County. When it came to health care protections for pre-existing conditions, she stood with Trump, not with the 50% of folks here in Orange County who have a pre-existing condition and need and value health care. When it came to our beaches, she stood with Trump and Big Oil, calling for more drilling off the shores of Orange County, not with us who value the clean air and beautiful environment that we have. I could go on, but Mimi votes 99% of the time with Trump, so it would be a very long speech. The point I want you to take away is that we deserve, Americans deserve, a representative who puts their interests ahead of special interests, who will fight for campaign finance reform, who will stand up to big pharma when they're gouging those with cancer and those with asthma, who will stand up to the big banks when they think they can break the law. We deserve somebody who's for us, for Orange County families, and that's what I'm gonna do 100% of the time in Congress. Thank you all so much. And I would love to take your questions. Wait, whoa. Teacher, student in back.
My name is Cash Akrakar. My question to you is, what is your most important priority in Washington, and how will it help us as seniors in Laguna Woods?
Yep. So there's two kinds of priorities that I think a lot about. What we can do on day one, and what's going to take a little more time, but is really, really important. The day one thing that I want to do is pass common sense gun violence prevention legislation. And that's going to keep all of us safe, regardless of age or party or the community that we live in. We are all at risk, and we know how to tackle this problem. We know what works. The only thing standing between us and safer communities is politicians like Mimi Walters, who are beholden to the gun lobby, rather than thinking about the safety of our community, which is something that we all prize. In terms of a big picture priority, it's reversing the tax bill that Mimi Walters voted for. That tax bill punishes us. It singles out Californians for unfair treatment. It's going to reduce our ability to deduct our state and local taxes, which go to the things that are most important to us, that are literally closest to home. It's going to raise the price of housing and make our housing affordability crisis worse. It's a terrible, terrible bill. And worst of all, it is blowing up the deficit and setting the stage for devastating cuts to vital programs like Social Security and Medicare. So we need tax reform that works for Orange County families. We need a fair tax system. We need a champion for tax fairness, not somebody who will sell out Orange County because Donald Trump, Paul Ryan, and Kevin McCarthy asked her to do so. And that's what we've got in Mimi Walters.
My question to you, Katey, is how are we going to fight the huge amount of monies that I anticipate are going to be coming in from the Koch brothers, because the Republicans do not want to lose Orange County, And what can we do to fight that?
Yep. So our campaign has been extremely successful at building grassroots support. And we have built the resources and the team, both paid and most importantly volunteers, like so many of you, that we need to communicate with voters. We don't need to outraise the Koch brothers, but we need to have enough to make sure that we don't leave any door unknocked, that we don't leave any phone call unmade, that we don't leave any vote uncast on November 6th. The number one thing you can do to help with that is to come out and volunteer. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, come join our team. We are opening a Mission Viejo office, so it will be easier for you all to get there. And those of you here in this part of the county to come in and give your time. And not just your time, it's to give your voice to this campaign and to this fight. The number one most persuasive thing you can say to somebody is to tell them why you're voting Mimi Walters out and why you support a representative who will stand with Orange County families. So if we add our voices together and we reach people and we do the hard work that democracy requires, we'll win in November. And we've seen this. We're seeing it on the ground and we're seeing it in the polls. The most recent poll released in this race shows I am beating Mimi by 3 points. We know what Orange County values. We know what Orange County wants. It's our job to make sure that everyone understands that what Mimi Walters votes against us in Washington, it is hurting us here at home. So the number one ask I can make of each of you is to contribute your time, your talent. If you can contribute money, great. Give what you can, do what you can, but join in the conversation about why Orange County deserves a congresswoman who will stand with them. Sue is doing her very best talk show. You guys are missing it here. She's burning a lot of calories back there.
As a grandparent, I know that the state really works the charter schools. How do you feel about the for-profit charter schools?
I think our public schools in Orange County are the bedrock of our community. And I'm going to let you in on a not so secret fact. Nobody moves to Irvine, California for the nightlife. You move to Irvine or Tustin or Laguna Woods, you move to these communities for the quality of life. And a big part of that quality of life that we have built and that we value comes from the investments that we have made year after year after year in our public school system. We have seen firsthand in Orange County what for-profit schools do with Corinthian College in Santa Ana, which to turn a buck for its shareholders, scammed students and veterans using our tax dollars on the GI Bill, trying to better themselves by getting an education. So we have public schools that work in Orange County, and we need to protect them and make sure they're getting the funding and resources that they need to be the bedrock of our communities and our economy going forward.
Hi, Katey. I'm nervous about talking in front of people, but I'm going to do it. I loved watching Obama on Saturday revealing that personal story of his about Disneyland, and he, that was great. And then your story tonight, it told me a lot about you versus the flyers I read and all this other stuff. So I encourage you to keep doing that. But once we get you into Washington, are you going to stay centered and grounded? I worry about people getting there, and then all of a sudden you get so much money from the lobbyists, and your kids can go to college, and and then I think people change, and I really like you, so I'm just going to say, hey, stick with us the whole time if you don't mind.
Yeah, No,
As we put you farther.
absolutely. So thank you for your words and for your question. Look, I'm a working mom of 3 kids, driving a minivan with 118,000 miles on it, and I spent my afternoon at Sprouts because it's double coupon Wednesday. And while I was choosing some tomatoes, a voter came up and said, "You're Katey Porter, I saw you on TV." And my daughter Betsy said, "Be careful, that's my mom. Are you going to vote for her, or are you just trying to talk to her?" So I love living here. A huge part of the reason that I am running to serve this area is that I don't want to ever leave Orange County. This is where I'm raising my kids. I work at the University of California, Irvine. It's the second largest employer in Orange County. It deserves a champion in Congress. So I am committed to being here. And let me say this about how people change when they go to Washington. I've gotten the ability to had the opportunity to testify before Congress several times and to work with folks on the Hill. And let me just offer this observation. If you don't take your backbone with you to Congress, you sure as heck don't find it in the halls of the Cannon office building. So you should be looking for a candidate that has shown through their career that they will put families and what is right ahead of special interests, and you will be looking for somebody who's financed and run their campaign and whose commitment to campaign finance and their commitment to the values that we share is present each and every day in their campaign from start to finish. And we have worked very hard to do that. We're proud to have signed the town hall pledge that requires us to get to talk to nice people about what's going on in our country. That's something Mimi Walters won't do. And it's her loss, because it has been my incredible honor in the 20 months of this campaign to get to learn from so many of you and hear what's important to you and hear your stories and know what matters to you and to know these communities better than I did at the start. So it's Mimi's loss that she isn't grounded right here in the 45th district, which I think is an amazing part of America.
Hi, Katey. I am not used to talking in public. But I came to this country from Venezuela 25 years ago, and I fell in love with this country because I used to turn on the TV and see the discussion in the Congress and see this is democracy. And now I feel ashamed of that because we don't have that anymore. And what I want for you to us is to hear what we ask you to do over there and to influence people over there to be and to return at that country that I saw and I listened when I came here. It's very important because I have been working since we have this president, because I don't want in this country to happen what happened in my country. It's very sad. I cry every day for that. I hope we can return the decency to this country. I don't want this country to go down. Please help with that.
So there is no doubt that the core institutions of our democracy are at risk. Respect for freedom of the press, independence of the judiciary, a Congress that understands that it is an equal part branch of government whose job it is to be a check and balance on the president. And so we absolutely need leadership, and we need to understand what's at risk in this election. And I think this was something that we heard the president say when he was in Anaheim. He was emphasizing the importance of voting. And he was reminding us that if we're worried about the direction that President Trump and Mimi Walters are taking this country, The power to change that is with us. What happens next in this country isn't about what Trump decides to tweet or what Mimi decides to get bought and paid for by a lobbyist. It's about what we do in November. And so President Obama, I think, reminded us that if we don't act, if we don't vote, if we don't work every day to stand up for our democracy, things can get worse. And I think that is an important reminder for people, especially here in the 45th District, where we haven't always been as politically engaged as I think we must be going forward. Not just in this election, but up and down the ballot as we go forward. So we need to model leadership. We need people who in Congress who will have the courage of their convictions, who will show respect to each other, who will disagree, but will do so in a way that preserves the foundation of our democracy.
Hi, Katey. You strike me as very organized with the family and with the job at the UCI and then in Washington. How do you plan to balance that once you're in Washington?
Yep.
How are you going to do that?
Yep, so I have been, my oldest son is 12, 10, and my second son is 10, and my daughter is 6. So I have been juggling being a working parent from the get-go. I had my children on the tenure track. I've written books. I've traveled with them. I've gone back and forth. I've always been able to do my very, very best at work and do my very best as a parent. And so for me, during this campaign and after I win in November, it's going to be the same. It's going to require having a strong team around me, having a strong support system, and making sure that I'm using every minute of every day to serve both the communities that I love and the kids that I love. Okay. I am out of time, so I'm going to stop, and Linda is coming up to introduce the next person. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm gonna make sure I did not take your I apologize that I have to leave, but our canvassers are out knocking on doors right up until 8:30 tonight, and they are coming in from a long day of knocking, and I'm going to be there to talk with them and greet them and thank them today. So I am heading to my field office, and I'm sorry I can't be here with you, but I'll be back a couple more times in the upcoming days. So thank you so much.
Awesome. We're going to show Mimi Walters a thing or two, right? All right. I love this next candidate's name, and I predicted he'd do well because of his first name, Duke, D-U-K-E. That just resonates in Orange County, right? He made a spectacular last-minute second-place finish on the June ballot, edging out a Republican and therefore finishing in the top 2. And going on to November, he's running for Sheriff Coroner of Orange County, which is currently held by the termed-out Sandra Hutchins in a very scandal-ridden department. I'm sure you've read a lot of that. He will have a total of 10 minutes to speak and 10 minutes to answer questions. Please welcome Duke Nguyen.
Well, good evening. Good evening. Did you say we're going to stay here until midnight? Just kidding. It's a pleasure to be here again. It's always an honor to come down this part of South County. Well, first of all, thank you for your votes. Thank you for your votes in the primary. It was you who made it happen, and that's why I'm here. You know, after 26 years in law enforcement, someone asked me, and I thought about this, why do you really want to run? Seriously, Duke. You know, when I was in the academy 20-some years ago, my drill instructor could not pronounce my last name. So I was given a nickname, Duke Nukem. So all my classmates could not pronounce my last name, so I said, no, that's Duke Nukem. But really, after 26 years, I want to continue what I have started 26 years ago, which is becoming the next sheriff to serve you. 2 reasons. When I worked at Compton and South Central, every day before going to work, it doesn't matter how late I was, I would always head to my kids' room and give them a kiss before I go. Even today, I still do that. And coming home after campaigning on a long night, walk into the house, first thing I check on them, give them a kiss on their forehead. When I kissed them before going to work, when I'm working at South Central and Compton area, because I don't know what my future lies, whether or not I'm going to be coming home that day. And coming home, give them a kiss, is basically saying, Daddy's home. Number 2 reason to running for sheriff, like I said earlier, is giving back to the community. America had let me, came in here in 1981. After 26 years of service in law enforcement, I want to continue that tradition of service in serving my community here in the County of Orange. When I set the academy 26 years ago, the first thing I opened up on my folder or my jacket, my personnel jacket, it was a note, or basically a little saying written by Lou Hope. Treat others the same way you want to be treated. Do the best you can. And do what's right. 158 cadet, we all got the same note on the very first day. I take pride of that. I carry that with me in my heart. Working Compton South Central, working now as detective, I still believe in that and I still carry that. And I want to continue that tradition here as sheriff in the County of Orange. The sheriff department has a lot of scandal, mishap. It is unfortunate. We got lots of good men and women who serve that department, but you have terrible, terrible management. My opponent, of course, denied all the scandal, stated to the newspaper that the department is okay, it's fine, there's nothing going on, there's no scandals. Those are occurred because a few deputies had decided to take matter into their own hand. So I asked them on national radio, 13 years of management, 2 years of the under sheriff, and you can't even control your own personnel. You let this few deputies, you call it, running your department. And I said, I wonder who is the management, you or them? The people of Orange County, our citizens here deserve better. And like I said, I will always do the best as I can, do what is right, and treat others the same way if you want to be treated. And that's my model in my department. And that's how I'm going to make sure that my personnel, my men and women, will make sure that their core values will reflect those. As your sheriff, I have many, many projects, many programs. First of all, is to reform the department. I have to bring that department up to speed to the 21st century. That's including body cam, making sure the policies is up to the date. I got to realign my command staff, making sure they're well trained, making sure they're trained with diversity training, making sure they understand that the missions is we the people to serve in this County of Orange. And lastly, restore the trust in this community. Restoring the trust has a lot of, in my heart, giving back to the community. I want to make sure the community understand that I'm here to fight for you. I'm here to stand up with you. I'm here to make sure that my men and women hold the highest accountability when they were out there performing their job. I want to implement programs such as getting Wi-Fi throughout the county, up in the hill area, making sure that all the burn area, working with the fire department, so we can get in and get out and evacuate folks if we needed to. I have to make sure that South County here, especially South County here, make sure that all the hospital, I think there's like a 1.5 hospital, right? How do we evacuate the 500,000 of folks when they need to go to the ER for triage, right? In case of disasters. How do we get fire department, get in and perform fire around the mountain, the hillside? Communication, same thing. Wi-Fi. Many of you are hiking up in the hill, you have no signals. In case of disasters, you can't call 911. We talk about the homeless issues also. As I've been campaigning for the last 18 months, all I hear is our homeless folks are being pushed from one city to the next city. Well, it's time to stop. It's time that the Board of Supervisors take some action. It's time the Sheriff Department, the current administration, take some action. But I think the best actions is let me take the action for them. I will be their leaders. I want to make sure that I want to work with the Board of Supervisors, spend that money that is in their closet, get our homeless folks out the street into a shelter, getting a mental health program implemented. Like I said earlier on my previous visit, the MET team, M-E-T, mental evaluation team, to evaluate our patient, get them checked, get them in, and get them out and get them treated. There's been a rise of question asked about what's my stand with teachers armed with guns in school. I'm against that. I think teachers have done a tremendous... Our teachers have done an outstanding job teaching our young. They don't need to be arming guns, carrying guns to school. The best tool is the iPad these days. That's what my kids said, Daddy. And they're better than me with the iPad, trust me. At the same time, we want to make sure that our school infrastructures, I want to implement also the counselors, especially for our mental health, into our school. Recognize those kids who need helps, get them their helps. Jonathan's looking at the watch. He said, "Dude, you got 3 minutes. Wrap it up. We're getting ready to go to bed." But again, I'm humble and I'm honored to receive your vote in June. Coming November, again, I ask you to do one more time for me. But this time, I want you to do it with your friend, your families. Spread the word out. There's only 2 candidates. There's not 3, there's 2 candidates. And you know who's the best to serve this community. As the people's sheriff, I call, it is my job, my responsibility to protect you. You are my investment in this county. Because without you, we wouldn't be a community, we wouldn't be a diverse community here in the County of Orange. I'm humble and I'm honored, and thank you.
I was very relieved to hear you address the issue of mental health. Back in the 80s, I worked on a psychiatric evaluation team, and nurses from our group would go into the police stations and do an in-service on how to deal with mental health patients. The sheriff's department was one to continuously refuse the service that we provided. And so I was really relieved to hear you say what you did about mental health, because the worst thing in my mind is to have a patient that is psychotic and have some John Wayne type of cop coming in and gonna show them who's boss.
Thank you. You know, when I was working custody, assignment to custody, I was a medical deputy for a year, and I deal with mental health. That was my main responsibility, was to deal with mental health. I think it was 3 weeks ago, I took a little trip up Northern California. While I was up there, I contacted a few folks that I knew that was doing the mental health for the law enforcement. Alameda County is currently having a project that they're working on getting all their personnel trained in the mental health. So I'm closely communicating with the trainer up there and also the agency up there. I want to see how the progress, and I want to see some good result. If that goes well, and as your sheriff, all of my men and women will be trained up to speed how to deal with our mental health patients.
Duke, I'm very interested in what you will say about gun legislation. So I'd like to hear a few words about where you stand on what can we do, what can be done, what would you say we should do?
Guns legislator. Okay, excellent, excellent. Gun to me is a tool, but we need to exercise that tool and utilize that tool properly. What I want to do with all of our legislators is I want to make sure that gun owner or a new gun purchaser have to purchase also a safe box to store those in. Many of our gun owner, once they purchase that gun, they get it home, they put it on the closet or the bookshelf, and this is where our kids get access to those guns. So I want to make sure that the gun law is tightened. I want to make sure that people who want to enjoy the sporting good of gun are do it properly, and we make sure we get them trained. And by the way, I am not an NRA member.
Duke, I wanted to know what you thought about this new weapon that the police have just recently gotten, which is called the Lariat. I think that's what they call it. It doesn't seem to have the impact that a stun gun and those things have, so I was wondering if you would give us some insight as to how that particular item works and how much safer it is for both the police and the perp.
You know, I'm not too familiar with that. I've been off for the last 4 months, leave of absence. I know my chief have said that, Duke, when you come back, the first thing I'm going to give you is a body cam. So I go, Chief, I'll be in your office first thing when I come back. I am trained as a SWAT member. I am trained on every weapons that there was out there for me. I think the best weapon is the taser. Even though it is sound when it produces a lot of volt electricity, but it is very least amount of damage. There is a new taser came out. It's not the X26 anymore. I think it's the second generations. It's more accuracy. At the same time, it has a better control to it. I'm a firm believer of a taser because, like I said, it is probably the best non-lethal weapons out there. I think any other departments are coming out and trying to advertise. I think maybe the word I want to use is advertise for the weapon. I don't think we need to go and spend something that hasn't been proven work. We should spend something that is proven that it's had been working for years to come.
I was wondering what you could do within the department to help reduce
racial profiling?
You know, like I said, training, putting great scenario, making it more reality to our deputies. Has many trainings. As a police officer in the state of California, we have to hold every year 24 hours of training. And unfortunately, we don't have that training to implement that should be included every year. So I said earlier, I want to make sure all of my deputies who go to the diversity training in the community at the same time, I want them to rotate around. I don't want them to work for South County, you know, all their lives. I want them to work up there in the Northern County where they have a very more exposure of more diverse community up in that directions. Because like I said, sometimes when you have an officer who worked one area so long, he or she become complacent. Sir.
Policemen, we send them, John Q. Public, to deal with people we don't want to deal with. We send them to the worst. It naturally causes some sort of prejudice. I was sort of influenced by a retired policeman that started giving me talking some of his prejudices. And this affects the policeman at the bottom, his supervisor, all the way up years and years because of where they were. What is your method of approach of addressing this problem?
Training and higher education. As you know, traditionally, I have a college degree. Many of my classmates, 158, when you ask around, they said, I only have a high school degree. We typically tend to hire our employee at a younger age. So they go through this process of training and you give them a gun and a badge and next thing you know, hey, I'm Superman. I know how to do this job, right? They don't. They haven't gone to that stage where I call the maturity. So what I want to do is, like I said, training, but also I wanted to implement, I want my personnel, people who want to go back to get a higher educations, have an opportunity to do that. John said, I have 2 more minutes, 5 more questions, right?
I've noticed that about in the last 6 weeks or so, there's been a number of stopping of street people, and it takes 3 and 4 cars that around this one person. Is that policy that it takes 3 or 4 policemen to stop and question a person on the street that might be begging? And I mean, it's been at least 4 times in the last 6 weeks.
It's talked up. It's called, there's not enough work for them to do. It's not enough work for them to do. I remember when I was working Compton South Central, and we lived by this model. It's still today as a detective. You catch them, you clean them, you hook them, you book them. And that means you're it. Nobody else can come to you unless you yell for help. And I talked about a little bit on my campaign is when I was up north, I also seek out and advise, and at the same time want to implement a little change in the county. My future as your sheriff is making sure that our men and women are in a 2-man car to best serve the community, not a 1-man car. Make sure that the resource is spent wisely. Couple more. I want to, if there's no other questions, there's 2 up there.
I would like to know, please, if there is a relationship between the sheriff's office and the ICE people.
There's a big relationship. We don't get along. I want to share that when I went up to San Francisco, up in the Bay, and I had a 2-day meeting, and I had basically almost a 20-some hours meeting on both days. And one of the biggest things I heard was that ICE when they come into our county, they screw things up badly. So like I said, this is my county, this is my jail. No one else is coming here to work except my employee. My job is to keep our county safe and our people safe. That's including people who are in custody. So my time is up. Again, I thank you. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your votes. And donations, every dollar count, every vote count. You have to understand, if I am elected sheriff this coming in November, I will be your sheriff for a very, very, very long time. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, this is just great. We have such a good group of candidates this year. Tell everybody you know, get out and vote, right? Okay, your neighbors, your family, just get out and vote. Thank you. This man has been so patient. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you a member of our club, a village resident, a man who is going to run for the nonpartisan El Toro Water District. He has lots of experience in this, and he gets 2 minutes, and we'll take 2 questions. Please do welcome Mike Gaskins.
Okay, thank you for staying around long enough to listen to me. If you'd asked me in the beginning of July, what am I going to be doing right now? I might have been going camping, go mountain biking somewhere. Being up here in front of you and running for an office wasn't part of my plan at all. Unfortunately, in June, one of the 5 El Toro Water District Board of Directors died, and that left a vacancy. And so in July, they put out a request for people who might be interested in filling that vacancy. So I filled out the whole application and went in for an interview process. And my other person interviewing was Catherine Freshley. And when they voted on it, they voted her in because she had had, I believe, a lot of contact with them in the past. But after doing this, I said, I can do this job really well. My background, my degree is marine biology. I worked in a water district as a chemist, microbiologist for almost 10 years. I then from there led into labor, public sector labor relations. Did that, and then I crossed the fence and became human resources director in the city of Montebello. So my background is I have chemistry, science, environment. I have a great understanding of public sector employment, of benefits, salaries, all of these kind of things. And I can bring that experience to the water district. I don't see anything particularly wrong with the water district. And a water district that does its job well is invisible to you. You take for granted that when you turn on the tap, drinkable water is going to come out. It may not be the best tasting, but it's safe. And then when you flush the toilet, that waste goes somewhere, out of my way, gets treated and gets responsibly eliminated or sent out to sea. Here in the water district, they actually do tertiary treatment. Those 2 ponds at Moulton and, was it Red Trout? Yeah, Red Trout. There are tertiary ponds. They are impounding effluent from the sewage plant that is well treated, disinfected, and then dechlorinated before it's put into the pond. And then that's used for the irrigation system around here, the reclaimed water irrigation, which is a great use of water. And so I think that the district is on the right track. I want to keep it there. That's my goal, and protect the environment and treat the water, treat the waste, and do it in a fiscally responsible manner. So thank you. And so if anybody has questions about me, about water,
Hi. I was wondering who we should call when we see a water sprinkler head off and, there's a mess of water being wasted, whether it's a private lawn or a golf course. Who should we call?
I have it depends on where it is. The water district is the water provider, and they provide water to Laguna Woods, who basically pays the bill. And so all of that is a maintenance issue here within Laguna Woods. You would call maintenance if it's one here in the woods. The water district itself doesn't really have anything to do with it. If you see something going on the street, call the water district. But just sprinklers and excess use of water, somebody leaving a hose run, it's a local maintenance issue. Yep, we got. Everybody's pointing fingers, so it's.
For the 60 years in Riverside, we have our own at the golf course in San Bernardino. Our water cost us about $53 per acre foot. We turn right around and sell it to Orange County for $150 an acre foot. This is back then. Now, we in Riverside, just to be legal, we blend just to barely make the quality standards. What is your opinion on blending questionable water and your best water?
I couldn't hear your last two words.
You're blending waters just to make yourself legal on the state standards. So what is your policy on blending? You blend just enough to squeak by?
Oh, no. If you see the water, El Toro Water District does not have any local water. Some other water districts in Orange County have gravels and an aquifer to pump water. El Toro doesn't. They buy everything from Metropolitan Water District and then turn around and distribute it to you. That water, you have very hard water coming in here because they're delivering you your own little piece of the Grand Canyon right into your kitchen, and sometimes it sticks. No, I think exceeding the standards is really important. There are different places around. For instance, in Norco area, there's a desalination plant for groundwater because of an awful lot of cows. And so there's an awful lot of treatment. After that water's treated, it is technically safe to drink, but I wouldn't recommend it. It has a high nitrate content. Same thing's true with these two ponds over here. And the biology in those ponds helps take out that nitrate and make it safer for the environment. And so all these things that we can do, whether we can biopolish it, minimal chemistry, because chemistry costs money, bacteria are free, they just reproduce. I don't know if that really answered your question, but I think exceeding standards is best. The district could provide you with sparklet water, but you'd pay for it. The technology is there, reverse osmosis, et cetera, but it's at what cost? So you've got to be fiscal. I really don't know what the current, from Metropolitan Water District, I don't know what the acre foot cost is. I know there's a wholesale rate, there's the retail rate, and like I said, beginning of July, I had no idea I'd be up here. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you. Okay.
This concludes our evening's event. For those who live in Laguna Woods Village, we'll let you know the air times on Channel 6. And I already mentioned YouTube. I hope that you will go back to our meeting room and dining room 2 and talk with these fine candidates and ask them any questions you have and write them out some checks. That'd be nice. Okay, many thanks to them. And for everyone who came tonight, thank you so much. Be safe. Be sure to vote. Good night.